Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another very exciting Star Wars video. It is I once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg, and today you're in for a treat. I have even more theories for Skeleton Crew, and then in the second half of this video, some more news from around the galaxy. You guys know I've covered endless theories about Attin, Jordan on Nawood, the children, but there is one blind spot we missed, a character we need to talk about because in the most recent episode, something he said has led me to believe his backstory is more important than we think, and could be a major part of this puzzle. The first mate of the Onyx Cinder, SM-33. Who was his former captain? How did the Onyx Cinder end up on Attin? How did the crew members die? How long's it been there? But an even bigger question, is SM-33 programmed to withhold information about that mission? Is he deliberately not telling us the truth because he was programmed to not reveal the specifics of what led him and his captain to Attin in the first place? And you might say, well, he doesn't know Attin. Well, I'm starting to think that's not necessarily true. And the reason I say this is in the most recent episode, after he's rebooted, after he's rescued from Borgo, his memory is still mostly intact. He remembers the children, he remembers Fern as his captain, but he seems to forget their mission to return to Attin. And this struck me as very strange, because look, to most of the galaxy it's just a myth, or it doesn't exist, a lost world concealed by the barrier. So it makes sense, despite being abandoned there, SM-33 can't locate it. But despite this, considering he remembers the children, he should have remembered their primary objective. And this makes me wonder, is his repeating of the line, "Can't say I remember no Attin," a defense mechanism, something he was programmed to say by his former captain? Because at some point in the past, he was on a mission that resulted in crash landing there, even if it was just a mistake. The way he defensively says, "Can't say I remember no Attin," after the kids told him where they need to go, makes me think his past, his former captain, are actually very important pieces of the mystery. Also notice his astonished reaction when he finds out Jod is a Jedi. Did SM-33 work for pirates that were enemies of the Jedi? For instance, the Nile Marauders of the High Republic. 2 centuries before the Phantom Menace, they were pirates and raiders on the fringes of the galaxy. They had access to mysterious hyperspace routes. And so according to this hypothesis, the Onyx Cinder was abandoned for hundreds of years. However, my dear friends, a brand new reveal on StarWars.com from Lucasfilm legend Doug Chiang has thrown a wrench in this theory. In a brand new interview where he's discussing the stylistic choices on the show, he mentions the deliberate decision to give the Onyx Cinder black and white stripes to match the design of the ships from the Mandalorian's 3rd season. And the reason this is so eyebrow-raising is it begs the question of if SM-33 worked for Gorian Shard. Was the Onyx Cinder crash more recent? And does this connect SM-33 to Jod? Because Jod, aka Captain Silvo, took over that crew. It could also just be a stylistic choice and have nothing to do with the show's plot, but it's an interesting thought. Something else worth mentioning in the context of the Onyx Cinder is how the showrunners laid out various clues on the inside of the ship. We know a fight of some sort went down, and when Wim gets into one of the quarters, we see a more traditional, non-sci-fi, non-Star Wars pirate hat, something you'd see in Pirates of the Caribbean. And this is quite an obscure design choice for the galaxy far, far away. It doesn't match pirates we know. A 3-point pirate hat in Star Wars, now that is something rather uncommon. It's been seen once or twice in the Old Republic, so I hope we learn about SM-33's past, his former captain, the Onyx Cinder's origins, and how it connects to Attin. But what I find even more interesting is how, in a Star Wars series with a literal Jedi pirate, we still haven't met Maz Kanata. So now, my dear friends, on to some other Star Wars news. We've got some other updates from some other parts of the galaxy far, far away. There has been an unprecedented announcement for the Acolyte, and it's got fans talking. So when the show was first released, long before we knew it was going to be cancelled after just 1 season, Lucasfilm expected a very different outcome. They were hoping fans were going to get behind the show, they were hoping it was going to be a big success, and the new flagship Disney Plus Star Wars show. Evidently that didn't happen, but with the release of the first season, they had planned prequel novels, which are still going to come out, as well as a visual guide. and now the latter has been announced. It's coming in June 2025 with a very interesting choice of author and forward writer. If you thought the Disney Plus series was controversial enough, the guide is being written by Pablo Hidalgo, a somewhat polarizing figure in Star Wars fandom, but considering he's written many visual guides, many different Star Wars reference books, this shouldn't be too surprising. But something that is the foreword being written by Amandla Stenberg, the actor who played Osha and May, the twins. Looking at social media the last 24 hours, this specific decision to have the actor write the foreword for this book is what's reopened a few wounds. But bear in mind, Rosario Dawson, Ahsoka Tano, wrote the foreword for the new Star Wars encyclopedia. So I suppose it's becoming more and more common to have Star Wars actors contribute to the tie-in material. But when I saw this announcement, the first thing I wanted to know is, are we going to get the full lyrics to what was arguably the worst moment of the entire show, The Power of Many? Also, can you imagine if they go out of their way to correct Ki-Adi-Mundi's birth date in canon? They almost have to. And you might say, well, it's not a big deal, but you have to admit, Leslie Headland rewriting Ki-Adi-Mundi's birthday was not on your 2024 bingo card, was it? I think one of my favourite comments under this is the person who asked if this is going to be a colouring book. All joking aside, despite my own feelings about the way this show turned out, in spite of creative decisions, writing, the direction, the editing, the way some of the shots looked, I have to admit, the show did give us some pretty interesting creature designs. For example, the noodle shopkeeper, the beaver sniffer. Actually, Star Wars Meg, his name is Basil. No, it's Beaver Sniffer. I don't make the rules. This Jedi, Tassie Loa, looked pretty awesome. What happened to her? Not to mention this guy, Kalnaka, the Selkath. As much as I didn't like the Witch Coven, this lady's design was pretty badass. So visually speaking, for a visual guide, I'm sure there's going to be some pretty substantial info. And in the last couple of days, some more Acolyte actors have come forward to share their thoughts on the cancellation. Jodie Turner-Smith, who played Mother Anastasia, who was very vocal about her thoughts on the backlash to the show, now says she has no regrets. And despite her character's death, she says she is open to returning. And then she says there's a lot of other stuff that comes with it that has nothing to do with the work itself, because it's politics, she says. Well, for now the show is cancelled, and Disney Plus have sent a clear message about viewership and fan reception as we come to the end of guaranteed Disney Plus Star Wars shows. They're not taking risks, and the reason I say the end is because as Disney pivots the IP back to the big screen, we're not getting as many series, and a second season of this show is more or less impossible at this point. But that's pretty much all we have for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Share your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.